Egypt condemns Israeli plans to displace Palestinians, calling it a violation of international law and their rights. The Israeli army extends movement restrictions in South Lebanon, warning residents not to return to affected areas. And Reuters reports that US President Donald Trump will issue an executive order tonight imposing sanctions on the ICC. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Egypt has strongly condemned recent statements by Israeli officials regarding a plan to displace Palestinians, describing it as a violation of international law and the international rights of the Palestinian people. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs warned that such actions could derail ceasefire negotiations, reigniting fighting and destabilize the region. The statement rejected any proposals aimed at uprooting Palestinians from their historic land, stressing that such actions would infringe on their legitimate rights. Egypt also emphasized the need to address the root causes of the conflict, including ending the occupation and ensuring that the Palestinian people regain their inalienable rights. Furthermore, Egypt reaffirmed its commitment to a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and pledged to work with international partners on recovery and reconstruction efforts, ensuring that Palestinians remain on their lands. Palestine has stated that Palestine is not for sale, not an investment project, and that the rights of the Palestinian people are non-negotiable and not a bargaining chip. Palestinian presidency spokesman Nabil Aburdina stressed that the Palestinians will never give up any land, including Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem. He vowed to prevent the repetition of the 1948 and the 1967 catastrophe and oppose any plans that undermine their cause. He pointed out the global rejection of US displacement plans and emphasized that peace and stability must come from Palestine, especially Jerusalem. Aburdina reiterated President Abbas' support for political solutions based on international legitimacy and the Arab Peace Initiative.
Against any occupation, whether Israeli occupation or American occupation to the Palestinian land, we are.
US President Donald Trump has stated that Israel will transfer control of the Gaza Strip to the United States once the fighting ends. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump stated that the United States, in collaboration with major development teams worldwide, would carefully and gradually undertake what he described as one of the greatest and most spectacular development projects of its kind without any US forces present in the Gaza Strip. GCC Secretary General Jassim Al-Buaidi has reiterated the Council's support for Palestinian sovereignty and an independent state with East Jerusalem as its capital and refugee return. Al-Badawi emphasized that the two-state solution is key to lasting peace and stability, a goal pursued by the international coalition to implement the two-state solution with Palestinian and global partners. He also highlighted the efforts of the Arab League and the OIC to end Israeli aggression in Gaza and the West Bank, support Palestinian resilience, and help Palestine gain international recognition and full UN membership. Britain has stated that it will oppose any efforts to forcibly relocate Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to neighbouring Arab states. The UK Women and Equality Minister Annelise Dodds has said that there must be no forced displacement of Palestinians and no reduction in the territory of the Gaza Strip. Her remarks come in response to US President Donald Trump's proposal earlier this week to resettle Palestinians and take over Gaza for development. Trump suggested building a resort where international communities could live in harmony.
In circumstances, we should be careful, calculated, and accurate in our use of language.
German President Walter Steinmeier has stated that US President Donald Trump's proposal for the United States to take over war-ravaged Gaza and create a Riviera of the Middle East after relocating Palestinians elsewhere is unacceptable. At a press conference with the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara, German President Walter Steinmeier said that the proposal was causing deep concern here in the region. Trump faced rebukes from the world powers, including Russia, China, and Germany, which warned that it would foster new suffering and new hatred.
Der regionalen Akteure mit der US-Administration sein werden. Deutschland setzt sich, und da sind wir.
Amnesty International has condemned US President Donald Trump's proposal to transfer Palestinians from Gaza, calling it outrageous and a flagrant violation of international law. Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Callamard stated that any plan to forcibly transfer Palestinians from occupied territory against their will constitutes a war crime.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it.
A European Union's foreign policy spokesman has said that the Gaza Strip must be an integral part of a future Palestinian state and that the Union is committed to the two-state solution. He added that the European Union remains strongly committed to the two-state solution and believes that it is the only path to long-term peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. The European spokesman continued by saying Gaza is an integral part of a future Palestinian state. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has told President Donald Trump to avoid ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Guterres told a previously planned meeting of a UN committee in search of the solutions to the problems that problems should not be made worse. He added it is vital to stay true to the bedrock of international law, and it is essential to avoid any form of ethnic cleansing. He also reaffirmed the two-state solution.
We must reaffirm the two-state solution.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has said that Israel does not yet have details on US President Donald Trump's plan for Gaza. His comments came during a press conference with his Italian counterpart Antonio Tajani.
Israel is ready to immigrate, wants to immigrate from his free will. It is moral to give him those. The principles must be everyone that is ready.
Israel's defense minister has ordered preparations for a plan to encourage the voluntary departure of Gaza residents following US President Trump's controversial proposal to relocate over 2 million Palestinians.
Israel's defense minister has ordered the army to prepare a plan for the voluntary departure of residents from Gaza. This follows a controversial announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump, who proposed that the United States take control of the Strip and relocate its over 2 million Palestinian residents. The proposal has sparked widespread condemnation. Key global powers, including Russia, China, and Germany, have criticized the plan, warning it would lead to further suffering and unrest. Arab nations, particularly Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, have strongly opposed any forced displacement, stressing the importance of a long-standing two-state solution. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, has welcomed Trump's plan and suggested that international opponents of Israel's military actions in Gaza, such as Spain, Ireland, and Norway, should accept Palestinian refugees. He also mentioned Canada as a potential destination, citing its structured immigration program. Hamas has dismissed Katz's remarks, calling them an attempt to deflect from Israel's failures in the ongoing war in Gaza. Palestinians, many of whom have been displaced multiple times due to Israeli airstrikes, remain reluctant to leave, fearing a repeat of the 1948 Nakba, when hundreds of thousands were forced from their homes. Meanwhile, tensions continue to rise as Israel and Hamas prepare for a new round of ceasefire talks amid ongoing airstrikes and deteriorating humanitarian conditions in Gaza.
Palestinians in Gaza have rejected the Israeli defense minister's order to the army to plan Gaza evacuations, saying that they won't leave their lands. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz ordered the army to prepare a plan to allow the voluntary departure of residents from the Gaza Strip. Israeli media reported that Katz's plan will include exit options via land crossing as well as special arrangements for departure by sea and air. For the 17th consecutive day, the Israeli occupation has continued its aggression on the city of Jenin and its camp, which has resulted so far in the killing of 25 Palestinians and causing dozens of injuries. According to Jenin camp's media committee, 15,000 people have been displaced and 180 homes destroyed by the Israeli army. The ongoing aggression has halted basic services, closed schools, and left 4 hospitals without water. Jenin city is facing severe shortages of water and electricity. Israeli forces continue to besiege Jenin governmental hospitals, blocking its entrance and main streets. Amid the piles of rubble from the massive destruction of Gaza, huge amounts of garbage is also adding to Palestinian woes. People are forced to live among the piles of rubbish which attract vermin and insects. Municipal services like garbage collection collapsed early on in the fighting, leaving nowhere to dispose of the waste except the streets. The garbage further adds to their woes with the smell, the flies, and the pollution, as some people burn it. Turbulent weather is compounding the challenges facing displaced people in Gaza. Strong winds caused extensive damage to the tents of displaced Palestinians in the central city of Deir al-Balah, adding further hardship to the difficult lives many face in the Gaza Strip. Displaced families said that the weather conditions caused them to lose their tents and what remained of their cloths and blankets. While about 500,000 displaced Palestinians have returned to northern Gaza in recent weeks, many others remain in Mawasi and other areas of southern and central Gaza. The Libyan Municipal Council in Misrata, along with the Misrata Red Crescent, has begun loading their second ship of aid destined to Gaza. Around 4,000 tons of food supplies, blankets, and medicines are expected to be loaded on the ship by Saturday. With fighting in Gaza paused, Palestinians are appealing for billions of dollars in emergency aid, from heavy machinery to clear rubble to tents and caravans to house people made homeless by Israeli bombardments. Now moving on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Israeli army has announced the extension of movement restrictions in South Lebanon, warning residents against returning to their homes in affected areas. In a statement on X, Israeli army spokesperson for Arab media Avichai Adrai said that the military remains deployed in the field and the movement southward remains prohibited until further notice. The army warned that anyone attempting to move southwards would be putting themselves at risk. The Lebanese presidency has announced that a meeting took place between President Joseph Aoun, Speaker of Parliament Nabih Berri, and Prime Minister-designate Nawaf Salam amid anticipation of the announcement of the new Lebanese government. The consultations to form Salam's government encountered numerous party-related obstacles due to objections over the portfolios assigned to each party, despite initial agreement on the ministerial nominees from Hezbollah and the Amal movement. The Lebanese Forces Party expressed reservations about the government's structure and its ministerial statements, reaffirming that it would not grant the government a vote of confidence. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has received the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and the European Affairs of Slovenia, Tanja Fajon, to discuss the latest developments in Lebanon. The Lebanese president called on European Union countries to support his country in its demand for the implementation of the terms of the ceasefire agreement, which includes the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the occupied Lebanese territories in the south. The Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, has confirmed that the agency in Lebanon will continue to provide essential services to Palestinian refugees who are among the poorest communities, ensuring their access to education and health care. During his meeting with the Palestinian ambassador to Lebanon, Lazzarini added that UNRWA needs more support than ever to continue its work in Lebanon until a solution is found for the plight of the Palestinian refugees.
Operation in the occupied Palestinian territory will be crippled as the legislation passed by the
Israeli army has continued its operation of burning and detonating homes in several towns in the Nabateya governorate in southern Lebanon, marking 2 new violations of the ceasefire agreement. Lebanese news agency reported that Israel has committed up to 854 violations of the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon since it came into effect 72 days ago. South Korea's foreign ministry has said it has taken measures with regard to Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek due to security concerns. The ministry has restricted access to DeepSeek in computers that connect to external networks. Other South Korean ministries are reported to have temporarily blocked employee access to DeepSeek. The ban makes South Korea the latest government to warn about or place restrictions on DeepSeek. Australia and Taiwan banned DeepSeek this week from all government devices. Reuters reported US President Donald Trump is set to issue an executive order tonight for sanctions against the International Criminal Court, the ICC. Reuters reported the order will place financial and visa sanctions on individuals and their family members who assist in ICC investigations of US citizens or US allies. The move by Trump comes after US Senate Democrat last week blocked a Republican-led effort to sanction the ICC in protest at its arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister over Israel's campaign in Gaza. And now we move to the latest developments in the Russo-Ukraine conflict. Russia's warned that it will retaliate if the European Union decides to impose sanctions on Russian diplomats. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova commented on media reports suggesting that the next package of EU sanctions against Russia may restrict the travel of Russian diplomats in EU member states. The Russian Foreign Ministry has stated that the United States needs to formulate its policy for ending the conflict in Ukraine, after which Moscow could base its position on specific US actions. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated separately that Moscow had heard numerous statements from Washington on Ukraine, but there was still no clarity on what the US envisioned in terms of negotiating a deal to end the conflict. Both Trump and Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, have stated that they are working on a plan to broker a deal to end the fighting in Ukraine, but they have yet to disclose the full details of what that plan might entail. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said Ukraine has received a first batch of French Mirage 2000 fighter jets, as well as US-made F-16 fighters from the Netherlands. Ukraine has repeatedly pressed Western allies to supply it with increasingly advanced arms and ammunition, including armored vehicles, tanks, long-range missiles, and F-16 fighters. Mirage 2000s are the latest sophisticated jets Ukraine has received from allies after the first F-16s arrived last summer, marking a military milestone for the country. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that Ukraine has significantly intensified contact with the US administration. Washington has been one of the biggest suppliers of military aid to Kiev since the start of the Russo-Ukraine war. President Volodymyr Zelensky said earlier Ukraine continues to receive military aid from the US, but there is no discussion currently about any prospective packages. Russian President Vladimir Putin has met with Kursk Governor Alexander Khinstein to discuss the situation in the region and support for evacuees from border areas. Khinstein drew Putin's attention to the fact that the compensation for the loss of property of 150,000 rubles was made months ago and is not enough, and urged restoring infrastructure in the border areas despite ongoing military action. Putin agreed to consider additional compensation and a restoration program with the government. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we've been covering. Egypt condemns Israeli plans to displace Palestinians, calling it a violation of international law and their rights. The Israeli army extends movement restrictions in South Lebanon, warning residents not to return to affected areas. And Reuters reports that US President Donald Trump will issue an executive order tonight imposing sanctions on the ICC. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, and X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EGY to stay informed. Many thanks for watching.